Hey everyone, today I'm going to tell you something fun about Cantonese. Cantonese is a variety of Yue Chinese, otherwise known as Yue or Yue Chinese. It is pronounced Guangdonghua or Guangzhouhua, or for the Yue Chinese, Yu. It is the prestige dialect or language under the Yue group, and is said to reflect Middle Chinese most accurately. It preserves the final most faithfully too. Cantonese is spoken in the city of Canton in Hong Kong, Macau, and also it is the most widely spoken form of Chinese overseas, although nowadays it's competing with Mandarin. Also, Hokkien is spoken in Singapore and Taiwan after Mandarin. The first thing you would probably have to know if you start learning Cantonese is the so-called lazy sounds. That includes pronouncing, merging the NL initials, the NG and no initials, syllabic NGs and Ms, and GW or KW sounds into just GO or KO sounds, and the final NGs and Ns. Some speakers have only a degree of these so-called lazy sounds and not all of them, while others could have more. However, whether this is really some sort of lazy sound is debatable. After all, in the 1940s or the 1950s, the palatalization happened. Some would consider this a natural sound change because, after all, Lama Island is spelled with an L, even though it historically had an N initial. Another thing you would notice about Cantonese, perhaps, is the tone shift. You should be familiar with this if you're starting to learn Cantonese, if you want to speak more naturally. Especially, tone shift occurs when words with a non-tone two gets pronounced as a tone two. That is something becoming like that. Especially for characters that originally carry a yang tone or yang tone. For instance, this character is pronounced mun. It carries a tone 4 in its literary pronunciation. However, in its colloquial pronunciation, or after the tone shift, which occurs when it is at the end of a word, you say mun, like that, a high rising tone, mun. For instance, in zokman, instead of zokman, it means to compose a piece of writing, and here it is at the end of a word. Other characters include K being pronounced as K, Awang being pronounced as Awang, etc. This creates, and and sometimes this is vital to uh, differentiating between meanings as well. For instance, Tong would mean sugar, while Tong would mean candy. This would sometimes be reflected in colloquial pronunciations of English terms as well. For instance, lunch could be pronounced lunch, Peter could be pronounced Peter, and mouse could be pronounced mousey, as some sort of colloquial Cantonese-ized English. The last thing about Cantonese here I would want to talk about is the treatment of entering tones. Now, the entering tones, there are three literary entering tones in Cantonese. Entering tones are essentially checked tones, that is, syllables that end with stops, P, T, or K. Now, supposedly, the entering tones, now, first of all, the entering tones would normally, going by the reasoning of late Middle Chinese, splits into two, yin and yang, depending on the voicing of the initial. However, in Cantonese, it splits into three tones. One is the yang tone that follows originally voiced consonants, or originally yang tone, yeah. And the yin entering tone has been split into two. Now, it is said that it is split depending on the vowel length. For instance, for short vowels, they would be assigned to yum yum, while for long vowels, it would be zong yum. However, Does it really sound short? I don't think so, because does him really sound like a short vowel to him? Him. Even Russell Peters say that's Chinese, or more like Cantonese people talk, like they are making a short word even shorter. So I would consider this splits depending on vowel quality as opposed to splits depending on the vowel length itself, because it does not seem to be, the vowel length is not phonemically distinguished or phonetically distinguished. So that's all for the day. Goodbye.